I have a couple of goals. I just wanted to quickly define triathlon for those people who aren't familiar with the sport. I want to talk very briefly about why I try. I want to talk about the problems and then the solution. So triathlon is a multi-sport competition of three sports in sequence, and it's usually swimming, cycling, and running. And there are a variety of distances, from short distances to long distances. The short distances are accessible to many people. They're called sprints, and they take me about an hour and a half to complete. And the longest distances are the toughest. You know, they're like the full Ironmans, and they would take me about 15 hours to complete. But there are pros in the sport. I am certainly not a pro by any stretch of the imagination. I'm an amateur age group triathlete. And age group triathlete just means I'm ranked by my age group, but I don't compete with other people in my age group. I'm competing with myself or for myself, and I'm competing against fears that I want to conquer. So moving on to, I didn't do an Ironman. I'm training for one. I'm doing one in about 3.5 weeks. So I'm training every day, multiple times a day, and I love it. I am so hooked on the sport, and I'm so privileged and lucky to participate in the sport. I train multiple times a day sometimes and all weekends. And it makes me feel so proud of myself. I feel so accomplished. I feel confident. I feel strong. And these are really important feelings for me because they're not feelings that I'm used to feeling. And I wish I had found the sport earlier in my life. It really helps me fight my daily anxiety. It really helped me with postpartum depression after my son was born. And it helps me build a community of really positive people to jump on my goals. And that includes my partner, but it also includes triathlon clubs, online communities. And it just brings me so much happiness and joy and confidence in myself that I want to share it with the world. And I want to help recruit other, especially women of color, into the sport. So I want to get to the third part of my presentation, and that's the problem. The problem is that there is very little diversity in triathlon. I knew this right away. If I went to a race, I saw that most participants are white men. This isn't unique to triathlon. I've been finding articles about CrossFit, about yoga, about boutique fitness clubs that don't appeal to women of color. And so it wasn't surprising to learn about the actual demographic information, and the numbers of people of color in the sport are very low. And these are the numbers I talk about in my video and in my presentation. 5% Latinas, Latinos, 2% Asian Americans, 0.9% African Americans, 0.4% Native Americans. Well, white membership takes up about 84% of triathlon membership. So this is a new research project for me, but I am finding that this diversity issue is a conversation that's starting to happen, kind of in the margins, in one podcast over here, in one blog post over there, in one marketing study out there. And so I'm trying to compile these, but it's just, there's not a central space for people to go to learn about diversity in triathlon. I think that the conversation needs to be more central. There are very obvious reasons and not so obvious reasons that there's so few women of color. Oh, those numbers, by the way, include women and men. So if we don't know the numbers of women of color in triathlon. It's very low though. And some of the reasons have to do with the sports themselves. For example, there's been a lot of academic work done about the social history of swimming pools, especially the lack of access and discrimination related to African Americans in swimming pools. And that has created this really intense legacy to the present, where over 50% of African Americans don't know how to swim. The group that is most affected by drowning currently are African American male children. And so the relationship between certain groups to pools has this longer history that's connected to discriminatory practices in the United States. And there's other reasons. There's one pro athlete, Sika Henry, who's the first African American woman who's attempting to go pro in triathlon. And I heard her on a blog post talking about African American women's hair and how the chemical relaxers that some women use prevent them from wanting to get wet. And I get that. I kind of hate swimming and I hate getting wet. And there are many reasons why the sport is difficult, especially for women of color. There's a lack of exposure of the sport to communities of color. There's a lack of marketing to communities of color. The sport is wildly expensive. So there just are so many reasons, and there isn't enough work being done currently by athletes, pro and amateur, to really make this issue a central issue, to do something about it. I found one article, the bravest article I found was written by an amateur woman triathlete. She's a white woman. She's also a PhD, and she's the only one that talks about white privilege and how white privilege is functioning in triathlon. So that I really appreciate her work, but more work needs to be done in that vein and compiled into one central place. And so that's where my proposal comes in. I am proposing to create a website called Racing Women that will serve as an accessible place for people to come to learn about the experiences of women of color in the sport. I want it to have resources for people who are mildly maybe curious about it. I want it to have resources for people who are already in the sport that need more support. I imagine publishing articles that are academically based. I want to do this kind of research. But also I want to interview people. I want to interview triathlon clubs that are doing really great work to diversify the sport and figure out what they're doing well to serve as a model for other people, so people don't have to keep reinventing the wheel in their own communities. And I'm a literary scholar. I'm interested in the literary. I want to hear women's narratives. I want to hear about their specific experiences. So I want to interview women who are in the sport and hear more about how the sport connects to their identities, their ethnic identities, their sexual identities, their gender identities, their class identities. How does their cultural everyday life coincide or conflict with the sport? These are the kinds of conversations that aren't really out there yet, and I think that they're important for the sport and to grow the sport. So I would spend the money building this website. I don't have a lot of experience building a website. I would just need some help in building the platform, making it beautiful, and launching it. Interviewing different people, perhaps transcription costs. So let me pause for a minute because I haven't even looked at any of the comments, but if you have any questions or comments, I'd be delighted to answer them. Your office looks normal for the end of the semester, for sure. I think my office kind of always looks like this, actually. Swimming and African Americans, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done in investigating the three sports because ethnic groups have different relationships to all of these three sports. For example, Latinos have a very strong history with running, and there's a very strong community of especially Mexican runners. There's a running tradition, and running seems to be the sport that's most accessible to a lot of ethnic groups. And so part of the strategy of recruiting more people into the sport is starting at those maybe 5K 10K races and reaching out to those people who are already participating in those, to teach them more about triathlon. The combination of the three sports is more sustainable. For people who just run, there's a lot of impact. There's a lot of wear and tear on the body, but the combination of swimming, cycling, and running is actually something that people can sustain for the long run, so to speak. All right, so I don't see any questions. But if anyone catches the replay and has a question, I'm delighted to reply to your comments. Just let me know. Oh, how am I going to promote the site once launched? It seems that that's a great question. It seems that triathletes gravitate toward Instagram. So I've been over the past year and a half building a community of triathletes on Instagram, and that's one way that I could promote the website. There are certain forums. One is called Slow Twitch that really reaches out to a large group of triathletes. So there are a few key publications or social media sites that a lot of triathletes gravitate towards. But in terms of recruiting new people or spreading the word, I think connecting with local community centers like the Y MCAs are a great location to try to recruit new people and teach athletes about the sport. Community centers like the Y also cater to a variety of people in their communities. They're generally more accessible, more affordable. Another idea would be to connect with local running shops and triathlon clubs to help spread the word so more people can learn about the site. Who are my intended users for the website? I definitely triathletes, but I want to reach beyond triathletes because I want more people to learn about the sport. So it would be women, hopefully women of color would find the site useful in learning about what their place might be in the sport, what other women's experiences are in the sport. One of the reasons why I want to build a website is because in academia, our audience is very small. So if I write an article to publish in a journal, very few people are going to see it. So I believe that the format of the website has the ability to travel to a lot more people. Thank you for those questions. Oh, yeah, I definitely want to reach out more to just triathletes. I think that there's a lot of work to be done that thinks about women of color in sports, sports in general, and movement and health and fitness. And because I want to see the sport diversified, I absolutely want to reach out to different kinds of communities outside of people who are already involved in the sport, for sure. Thank you for that, Haley. Do you have people in mind I want to interview? Yeah, there's a tri club that I've been admiring. It's called Hissy Fit Racing, and I first noticed them because I was a volunteer at an Ironman race in Arizona, and I saw these women with these fantastic triathlon suits that had like a leopard print and said "Me Wow" on the back, and they were just so like sassy and fantastic, and so I started following them, and I if I lived close to them, they're in Pearland, Texas. But if I lived close to them, I would be training with them every day. They're doing a great job in bringing more women into the fold, and they're at least the most diverse looking group of women triathletes that I've seen out there. So they have two leaders, two people who do the main organizing, and they're just these really approachable, dynamic women that I'd love to learn more about. So I think they're a really fantastic model. Hissy Fit Racing, watch out for them. I hope you can hear me. I am soft spoken, but I hope I'm speaking loud enough that you can actually hear me. Can you tell us project timeline if you get the award? Sure. I know that the project asked us to think about what we could get done by August. So by August, I believe I can build the website and publish 2 or 3 articles, an interview with the Triathlon Club, maybe a more personal history or personal narrative by a specific woman. And I'd love to get I'd love to pull my resources together and my research to get a short, more academic piece out there to think about the historical reasons as well as the practical current reasons why the numbers are so low and why it's taking why they're growing very slowly as well. Have you heard of Black Girls Run? Could be a good resource. I believe I don't know too much about them. Yeah, I believe Sika Henry mentioned them. Look, I'll definitely look them up and see what kind of work they're doing. I also started doing a little bit of research in terms of triathlon and the LGBT community, and it's pretty fascinating because there are tri clubs that focus on their members' sexual identities and try to be inclusive. In the UK, there's a specific race called the Rainbow Triathlon. There's a triathlon group called Try Out, and the hashtag LGBTRI, right? And there's some great articles that show that when specific athletes come out, they actually become stronger athletes, but every single one of these narratives is about a white man. So I'm interested in finding out about these narratives related to women of color. Well, great. Thank you so much for choosing me as one of the finalists. This has been so exciting. And I've been loving watching the live videos and learning about the other group's projects. I'll wait maybe one more minute to see if anyone has another comment or question. Thank you, Adeline. Thanks, Natalie. Thank you. Well, thanks so much, all of you, for being here, and good luck to all of the other candidates. Have a great night, everybody.